Episode 1 Night Flight. The episode starts with a mysterious hooded girl on a rooftop who just suddenly jumps off the roof. Talk about a grand entrance. The story follows 14-year-old Koyamori, your typical middle school student, sneaking out of the apartment in the middle of the night. It makes you wonder why and where a prepubescent boy would wander at night, wondering what to do with his newfound freedom. He makes his way to a park alone. Anyways, while playing on the swing, he is reminded of what happened at school in a flashback scene. Yamari receives a love letter in his shoebox compartment. When confronted by the girl, he apologizes to her, saying he doesn't understand dating. From where I'm standing, that sounds like a rejection. The girl's friends confront Emery, to which he could only apologize and say he wasn't sure about his feelings or if he even left girls. He was so deep in his thoughts that he was thrown off the sling. He should really learn to multitask. While trying to figure things out, his phone suddenly rings. He thought he was caught sneaking out by his parents or something, but it turns out to be a text message, beer ad or something. He continues on his adventure, walking the lonely streets of the city like an edgelord when he comes across a vending machine that suddenly flashes some really bright lights. Why, I don't know, maybe he's trying to give him a seizure or something. It was as if it was calling to him in a trance-like state. He slowly buys a beer, and this girl shows up and catches him red-handed. Oh no, underage drinking. He explains he was just told to buy it, but the girl doesn't sound too convinced, and honestly I'm with her, because just because the advertisement says you should buy it doesn't mean you'll actually have to buy it. But it's fine, because she says she won't report it to the police. This girl starts following Yamari, asking why he's wandering alone at night, especially as a 14-year-old boy. She speculates that most people stay up late at night because there's a show they'd like to watch or something they want to do, which, yeah, fair enough. She later said that people stay up late because they're unsatisfied with how the day ended. Typically people are bound by social norms and laws or whatever, so they adjust to what they believe is normal in the situation. Feeling a little sleepy, the girl invites Yamori over to her place. Nice. She reassures him that she will be able to help him to get to sleep. When they get there, the girl suddenly takes off her coat, which Yamori misunderstood as something else because he's a 14-year-old boy determined to get some sleep. Yamori agrees to try it. He's unable to sleep, especially with a pretty girl watching him, so he pretends to be asleep. When the girl thinks Yamori is already asleep, she slowly moves in and takes a bite at Yamori's neck, and so it turns out that the girl's a vampire anime. But it's fine, we accept it for the plot. Yamori wakes up only to discover that the girl is indeed a vampire, and he's worried that he might have turned into one. Now, have you guys ever seen any vampire flicks or shows? Just because you're bit by a vampire doesn't automatically turn you into one. The girl explains that for one to become a vampire, a human must fall in love with them, which is not the case here for fairly obvious reasons. Still trying to make sense of all of this, Yamari asks the girl some questions, who later introduces herself as Nazina Nanakusa. She explains that she has no plans to make vampires and is simply just feeding. That's nice. Pretty much any other vampire flick, they're just like we must expand the vampire nation, but it's fine, it's a breath of fresh air. Yamori later asks Nasa not to fall in love with her so that she can turn him into a vampire. He seems very determined about this, so it's fine. Like she's probably pretty into it too. She later takes Yamori to the rooftop, explaining that blood is best when drank in. When consumed at night. She suddenly kicks the armor off the rooftops. Oh yeah, okay, that would explain it. As he free falls, Nazina goes after him, where she grabs him and flies off into the night. See, it's always the dude that's a vampire in this situation, but am I the only one who's actually happy that it's the girl in this situation, or is that just like a me thing? Sorry. Anyway, episode 2. Do you do line? Do you do line? Do you do line? Okay, this is a really weird episode title, but after deciding to become a creature of the night, Yamari sneaks out of his apartment again because apparently his parents are that inattentive. He meets With Nazina intent on knowing more about vampires, he gets absolutely sidetracked with his questions, and Nessa has to remind him of his objective to become a vampire. While talk about one side of romance, she got thrown off when Yamori suddenly offers his blood out of the blue. Talk about brave, or in this case maybe horny. The next night he sneaks out and looks for Nessa again, and he still seems to struggle finding her, which I don't blame her because she seems to just wander around at night. When he's about to give up, she appears out of nowhere. I think the timing is also a kind of skill, in a sense, because it's like a dramatic entrance. Maybe it's like a vampire thing, I don't know. She explains that she's been looking for more people to just suck their blood, because that's a normal activity to do every night. Never mind, Yamori decides to actually be intelligent once in his life and actually asks for her contact information, to which she responds by asking if he uses the Line app. When Yamori said he didn't, Nazina felt relieved when she revealed that she just didn't have a cell phone and didn't actually need one. Which, why did she ask about the Line app again? It doesn't make any sense. Suddenly Nazina remembers that she has a cell phone, so she invites him back to her place again, where she finds one of those old blocky Nokias. But it seems like NASA needs a bit of an education about what regular advanced technology looks like in the 21st century, but like it's whatever, it's fun. After an intense conversation about cell phones, Nessa feels tired and decides to sleep. Honestly, I don't blame her. I can't get a new phone because I get bored reading the spec. She claims she was tired of flying all around town looking for random strangers. She later invites Yamori to her futon to rest so that she can suck his blood. Yay. While lying in bed, Yamori starts pouting, cause I assume he feels jealous when she was already out looking for someone else. Nasana must be feeling some of that teenage angst from Yamori over there, so she reveals that she was looking all over for him but was really embarrassed to admit it after hearing that Yamori offers his nectar where she is much welcome to take a little suck. So, Yamori needs some higher standards and Nazona needs to have more open communication. The following night Yamori meets up with Nazuna again, like always. Does this kid just not have school? Jesus. And just like always, they both struggle to find each other. And they okay. The thing about this, what happened to the phone? It's the third night already after finally finding her somewhere in the city. Yamori shows her a wristwatch transceiver that he brought earlier so they could get in touch, which is one hell of a workaround considering you could just get your phone. Plain, if you are feeling so generous, Nessa wants to play with it, and Yamori reveals that he had one when he was younger. And like, oh, look, here's a flashback. When Yamori was a lot younger, he saw the wristwatch transceivers in the shop and he really wanted to buy a pair so he could play with them. Nessa was shocked to hear that he wanted to play with it, but she was actually way more surprised to find out that he even had friends to play with. He claims that he figured out a way to play without even having friends. Yamori's brilliant idea is that he would just put it on a shelf and hope that someone came to pick it up, but obviously, nothing much really came of it, and he tried to check up on it but it was gone, which means that someone picked it up. He starts contemplating whether or not he should call the transceiver, but ultimately decides to wait. To this day, he has not heard a single thing from it. All that build up for, goddamn it. Nessa laughs at a story, and at this point, I'm feeling pretty awful for him, but it's alright. Yamori gives Nazuna the transceiver and they decide to test to see if it works. Despite the distance, it worked pretty well for a test run. They meet up later that night when Nazuna carries Yamori as they fly over the city under the night sky. They end up at Yamori's school, to which Nazuna comments that the night has a way of changing how people look at things. I am a night person myself, so I very much agree with it, especially Tokyo at night. That shit's gorgeous. When the moon starts to brighten up, Nessa suddenly approached him and sucked his blood out of the blue. No warning, no nothing, no asking. Your blood is mine now. Yoing. Yamura starts thinking that it's weird that someone super laid back like Nazina, who just makes a lot of jokes, would suddenly feel embarrassed when they start talking about love or romance, because she is not used to emotional intimacy. Every time there's a mention of love she just starts acting really weird. Yamori suggests that they get to know each other better and become friends, and this is coming from a guy who doesn't actually have a lot of friends, if any at all. And with the sun peeking over the horizon, Yamori heads back to his apartment. He starts wondering what happened to the other transceiver, or if the person who took it still has it but out. This version is strictly for demonstration purposes only. Of the blue, his transceiver beat, hinting that the other was close. When he looked behind him, he saw a familiar face. It's a character we've never seen before, but there's some emotional weight to it, so we just kind of, I have to accept it and go with it. Yeah, episode 3, a lot came out, a lot of what I don't know. I'll leave that for you to decide. This is Cancer. The episode starts with Yamori and Nazina having a small talk, asks him if he really doesn't have any friends at all. Yamori responds by saying he is unsure when one becomes friends, but all kidding aside, he says he doesn't know what friends are or how to become a friend. He claims that he did have friends growing up, but he hasn't seen them in years. He admits when he bought himself the transceiver he hoped to have a friend or just someone to talk to. Back in the present, Himari bumps into Akira. When he returns to the apartment, Akira reveals that she never threw out the transceiver since he gave it to her. Oh, well, it sounds like she's into him. She explains that since they were in different classes, he made more friends in the other class, and that meant that they didn't really keep in touch as much. She hoped the transceiver would change that, so she waited for him to signal, which he never did. When she heard that he hadn't been going to school recently, she decided to drop by his house with a transceiver, hoping to talk to him about it. Yamori is super mega confused, as he very clearly remembers leaving the transceiver in a mailbox and not giving it to Akira, and she corrects him by saying that he left it on top of their mailbox, to which she assumed it was left for her also. I said it was a shelf, sorry, it was a mailbox. She felt relieved after finding out he was fine. She was just worried about him, since he was a friend, and although Yamari may have thought he was standoffish and aloof, she was happy, despite all of that, he was able to make her think that he considers her a friend, in some somewhat twisted way. Realizing that Akira considers him a friend, Yamari casually greets them like an old friend, but he wonders why she is in her school uniform. She says she's off to school, but Yamari is confused as hell because it's 4 a.m. in the morning. She explains that she typically wakes up early and uses the time to walk around town before going to school, which is hugely unsafe, but that's another talk. Before leaving, she asks Yamori if he would like to meet again tomorrow around the same time too, which he agrees even though it's 4 a.m. The next night, Yamori heads home early after visiting Nazina at her place, and she's obviously a little bothered by this and starts prying into his business. She explains that since they have a physical relationship, which Yamori vehemently denies, he was not supposed to sneak around meeting other women, and Yamari is obviously really embarrassed, so he just runs away from the conversation. And he later meets with Akira at the park, where he asks if she enjoys hanging out with him, considering all they do is just small talk. He wonders why she bothers with him to the point where he thinks she actually likes him. Wow, who could have seen that coming? While trying to make small talk, Yamori realizes that Nasa is just watching them behind a tree, so, oh, he's so dead. Nasa assumes they're doing something inappropriate because they're meeting at 4:00 a.m. in the morning, and when Akira asks Yamori if he knows her, she explains that she does not need to worry, as what they have is only platonic or physical. In her exact words, Akira obviously assumes the worst about them, and determined to clear the misunderstanding, Nasa grabs Yamori and sucks his blood right in front of her. While that was bold and probably also really traumatic for Akira trying to understand their situation, they later go to a cafe to pick up where they left off. Still in shock, Akira asks Yamori why he lets a vampire suck his blood when completely unable to answer. She asks him to return to school with her. Nasana looks so bothered with how she is talking to Yamori that she butts in and asks her where she's been all this time and why she'd not contacted him before, and Boy does Nazana look jealous here then. In typical dramatic anime fashion, Nazana storms out of the cafe and Yamori runs after her, and now she thinks she's angry at Akira, but he has no idea why he searches everywhere for her but couldn't find her at all, so left with no choice he was a transceiver and apologized to her for secretly meeting a friend. I guess she then says that she was never really angry, but it just kind of annoyed her that Yamari never responded to her when she asked him to return to school. He explains that he struggled to give her an answer because he really wants to become a vampire. When Nazana noticed Yamori was bleeding, when he tripped up the stairs, she pulled him close and kisses him, and the plot thickens. Nazina then flies off into the horizon, claiming that he is a friend. Go ahead and tell me what you think of it. I'll see you in the next one, so thanks for joining me.